The New York Mets, they're now in the first wild card spot in the National League following the team's 8-4 win over the Atlanta Braves on Friday night. It's their fifth consecutive victory, and it was a busy Friday for the Amazons, who made a trade, but they also saw a player go down with an injury. We're going to talk all about it and do it with the great Mets content creator. His name is Tyler Ward, who joins me now. Wardy, what's going on?
How are you, Dexter?
I'm doing good. I know you're doing as good as the Mets are right now. The vibes are good. I see you smiling. I know the energy is good. So glad that you're well, which means we are going to have a pretty happy discussion here for the most part. And Tyler, we're going to start with the Red Hot Mets. They've won 5 straight games. They've taken the first 2 games of this 4-game series against Atlanta. What has been the key to their success thus far in the series?
In this series in particular, it's kind of had a flurry of everything, right? When we look at game 1, not so much on the offensive end. However, you still had the continued heroics of Francisco Lindor leading the way as a true MVP candidate. For those that don't know, Lindor has been the most valuable player in all the National League over the past 2 months, over Shohei Ohtani, over Bryce Harper, over basically any star you could think of. That is how good Lindor has been and continued his home run play from the Subway Series into that key 4-game matchup against the hot Atlanta Braves, who are far from hot at the moment. Then we look at Jeff McNeil. I mean, this man just decided to become a power hitter in the second half, and that continued thanks to the drop ball that we saw there, or running past it, that being Laureano in game 1. I was at Citi Field for that, which was so electric. Even for a Thursday night game, it was rocking like never before at Citi Field. Friday was even better to everyone that was in attendance, and that's where you had a lot more offense thanks to a masterful 7-run third inning headlined by J.D. Martinez. Similar to Jeff McNeil, 2 guys that have been slumping plenty this season, plenty as of late, I should say. And J.D. Martinez got all that one for an opposite field grand slam. That was a difference maker without question. And then you add in the pitching. The Mets had some fantastic pitching in game 1. And in game 2, leading up, unfortunately, to Kodai Senga's departure, he was carving up batters left and right. So you've had a nice sprinkle of the offense, the relief pitching, and the starting to have a nice balance of a first 2-game victory in a 4-game set here against their rivals.
And usually when things are going good in a series, as you know, Wardy, you're getting a little sprinkle of everything, like you mentioned there. Now, you also mentioned Kodai Senga. He had his first start of the season on Friday night, but he left the game with a calf strain in the 6th inning. Now, we don't know exactly how bad or how significant this injury is in terms of his health, but it is fair to question how significant is this injury for the team, because he was expected to provide a jolt to this rotation. So who steps up for him if he is to miss significant time again?
This is the most Mets thing to happen, Dexter. We were just saying it off air before getting rolling here. It feels like every single time, every single year, as soon as everything is trending the right way for the Mets, something has to derail as soon as someone returns from injury. It's like a soul for a soul, if you will. And for Kodai Senga, coming back and now down with injury after looking fantastic over 5.1 strong innings, looking like the Senga that he typically is after giving up a home run and then carving up every single batter thereafter. So very happy with Senga's performance. Beyond upset to see him go down with injury, but how the Mets counter from here? Well, this is a great question. The trade deadline is right around the corner now. So even if you miss Senga for a couple weeks, you need to fill that rotation spot. And we all know the Mets only have a certain level of confidence in Tyler McGill and then to a lesser degree, Joey Lucchesi. And that is exactly why I foresee the Mets to make sure that they still add externally on the starting pitching front, looking to acquire at least one more starter. To what degree is that starter going to be? We will find out in the coming days. But with the Mets expected to have a 6-man rotation upon Kodai Senga's return, whenever that happens from his injury now to his calf, to now finding out what is this configuration going to be while he's out. And then, yeah, Kristen Scott's on the shelf for still 2 weeks before he ramps back up. The Mets are going to need reinforcements, and they're going to need them fast. And that's why I fully expect them to seek external help more than internally that we've seen David Stearns do throughout the course of the season to this point.
That will be interesting to see if they do seek that external help in terms of a starting pitcher before the trade deadline, which is on Tuesday. And mentioning that trade deadline, on Tuesday, the Metropolitans did make a move on Friday evening. They acquired Ryan Stanek from the Mariners. What does Stanek bring to the bullpen, and how do you see him fitting into the Mets' late-game strategy?
Oh, he brings a bulldog mentality, Dexter. This was a slam dunk, a fleece job by David Stearns. And I know you might be saying, Wardy, we're talking about a guy who has definitely not favorable numbers over his past number of outings. That is true with the Mariners. You know, he hasn't had great success with them as of late. However, Stanek at his best is a flame-throwing right-hander that is a awesome setup option for someone like Edwin Diaz, especially with Daniel Nunez currently out with injury. You essentially replaced him for a bag of baseballs in return. This is not to down Ryland Thomas as a prospect return going the other way, but that was a top 30, top 40 prospect. So not something any Mets fan or David Stearns is going to find himself losing sleep over. And now you enter Stanek, who again touches 101 on the gun, has a disasterly mix that you see there with the splitty and everything going right. This is a guy that, as long as he performs to his caliber, is going to be a lightning rod of an electric right-hand arm in this bullpen. With guys like Sean Reed-Foley and Reed Garrett still working back from injury, it's imperative that the Mets make sure that they have some solid, high-leverage, high-upside arms with some flames behind the gas of that velo, and that is where Ryan Stanek helps in that regard. And add a nice little cherry on top. What have the Mets struggled with in recent years? They really felt like a team that has gone stepped on at times, whether it's being hit by pitch more than any other team in baseball or whatever it is. Now you enter Stanek, who has a very much a no-nonsense mentality. If you guys watch his highlights, anytime that he, say, brushes up a batter and something doesn't go the way it should, he's going to have his choice words. If he isn't happy with the umpire, no matter where they are on the field, he's going to let you hear it. So rest assured, if any battles happen between rivals, especially, say, the Phillies in September, Ryan Stanek is 100% going to be in the thick of it all.
Oh, man, the Mets fans are going to like that kind of energy coming out the pen. We'll see how he performs with the Mets. Last thing for me, Wardy, because with the Mets now in the first wild card spot, how do you assess their chances in this postseason race? And what is going to be, in your eyes, their biggest challenges going forward? You kind of mentioned some of the challenges they might see with the pitching staff, with Senga going down now. Is that their biggest challenges, or is there something else you look as a big challenge for this team going forward?
I honestly think the biggest challenge for this team going forward is going to also be just the intensity of this race. Let's not forget, the Mets were able to stay in the hunt even with being below 500 as long as they were, because of how much this NL wildcard race for that third spot, especially for a while, has been so tight. With all those teams battling in the NL Central, the NL West, teams like the Diamondbacks, Pirates, etc., they're all nipping at the heels. So for the Mets, they just got to make sure that they continue to play their game. I preach this a lot, Dexter, and this is exactly what JD Martinez has been saying, and for good reason. As long as the Mets continue to take everything day by day, they will hopefully get to where they want for not only making playoffs, but having themselves a run. And to help in that regard is going to be what they do at the trade deadline. Let's make sure we don't sit on our hands here. Let's not let this be a flashback to 2022 where Billy Epler decided to opt for, instead of an immediate need at the DH position, we opt for a platoon that only lasted basically a month before completely falling flat on its face. So for David Stearns, make sure you rectify this team more on the bullpen front, add this rotation if you can, along with potentially a bat, which certainly no one's going to complain about. More the merrier, and just make sure you keep the teams behind you, and good things are surely going to happen. Just day by day, don't look too far ahead, or that's where you're going to have pressure, and that's where the jitters start to come in.
There you go. Got to stay in the moment, and it's unbelievable because just months ago, there was a lot of talk about whether the Mets would be buyers or sellers. Some people thought they should absolutely be sellers. Now it looks like they will be buyers at the trade deadline, with the team playing extremely well. 5-game winning streaks. Couple more games to go with the Braves in this weekend series. We'll see how the Mets fare there. That is Tyler Ward, great content creator. Check him out on his YouTube channel, all the great content he puts out. Wardy, next time I see you, I hope the vibes are still as good as we had in this conversation.
I hope so too, Dexter. The bar is looking solid right now. Let's see how much higher we can climb before eventually having a dip. Appreciate you as always, my friend.
Anytime, my man. Thank you.